are not going well for the Montecito duo of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and this is completely evidenced in their latest surprise appearance, this time at the Beef Tastemakers Season 2.
The funniest thing about Meghan Markle's deranged display in Montecito over the weekend with Ted Sarandos, the Netflix boss, is that she hasn't realised yet. You're the one being played, Meghan!
Things are not looking great for the Montecito duo, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and honestly, it's hard to ignore at this point. Their latest surprise appearance at the Beef Tastemakers Season 2 premiere has people talking, especially because of Meghan's behavior in the photos. Some of those images, they showed up.
You think this is a big victory, and that somehow all of the stories, which are factual, which is that Netflix has dumped your ass because Was Never is the worst lifestyle brand in the history of lifestyle brands? Because, what was that show called? I can't even remember. With Love Meghan. With Love Meghan was the worst piece of lifestyle TV programming in the history of lifestyle TV programming. And the fact that they even unfollowed you, Ted included, on social media. She thinks that because of this photo display,
and then suddenly vanished from Getty Images, which is raising a lot of eyebrows. When things don't seem to be going right, Meghan's energy in public moments can come off a bit intense, almost like she's trying extra hard to make everything click in Hollywood.
When things aren't going particularly well, you can almost feel the force and emphasis by her to try and make this Hollywood thing work. And despite maybe getting an invitation, or more likely inviting themselves to this event, Harry and Meghan are not doing well in Hollywood. The future is, in fact, is looking quite bleak for them in the entertainment industry.
You can feel the effort through the pictures. There's this strong push to prove something. Whether they were invited or just showed up, the reality is hard to ignore. Harry and Meghan don't seem fully embraced by the Hollywood crowd right now. The future in the entertainment world, it's not exactly glowing for them. And it feels like Meghan knows it. There's pressure, there's expectation, and it shows.
At the launch of the Netflix series, ironically titled Beef, I really do think Ted knows what he's doing from a PR point of view, in some way goes against that reporting. It does not. What it shows you is that Ted Sarandos is a pretty clever bloke.
That big, almost forced smile in the photos feels less like joy and more like trying to sell a perfect story that people just aren't buying anymore. Now shifting gears for a second, there's also talk about a travel experience tied to royal history, religion, and more. It's being described as a full-on luxury trip with 4-star hotels and everything planned out. If that sounds interesting, there are links available to check it out, but keep in mind it's scheduled well in advance and needs enough people to lock it in. Back to the event though, because things get even stranger. Multiple versions of photos started popping up.
Premiere, where Meghan was acting, I would argue, manic in most of the pictures that we've seen, which have mysteriously been deleted from Getty Images, by the way. And I think it indicates something very clear. Meghan tends to get a bit more manic,
and then disappearing just as fast. It's confusing and honestly a bit suspicious. Let's break down what actually showed up before it vanished. Looking up beef, you might think it's about food, but it's not really that at all. Still, that's where we get one of the latest photos of Harry and Meghan. This particular image was one of the last ones posted before things started getting pulled down. And naturally, it raises a big question. Who is asking for these photos to be removed? In that image, Meghan appears very physically close to others, almost gripping onto people in a way that stands out. The body language feels intense and it catches your attention right away. Then there's the outfit, this bold green dress that really doesn't land well visually. It stands out, but not in a good way, especially compared to others at the event. Another photo shows Meghan again, with Harry slightly in the background.
Who knows what he has to do to get publicity for the show that he really cares about. Season 2 of Beef, of course, stars Carey Mulligan, who Meghan Markle copied with her crazed outfit, and Charles Melton. And that's why he wanted some big names at the party. Indeed, the American media was more interested in the fact that Justin Trudeau.
This gathering reportedly took place at Ted Sarandos' home in Montecito, where he appeared alongside his wife, Nicole. One detail that stands out: Meghan changed outfits during the event. She went from a darker look to a black and white combo, which adds another layer to the whole situation. Most people at the event were dressed in darker tones, keeping things sleek and low-key.
A lot of the pictures have disappeared from Getty Images. Like they're up there and then they're gone. They're up there and then they're gone. We've had like multiple versions of different pictures that have popped up and gone. So let me show you guys what I mean, and then we'll get into the various other pictures because unfortunately, like I said, they disappeared. I don't know why.
Then suddenly you have Carey Mulligan appearing in a similar green tone as Meghan. It's such a specific color match that it makes you wonder how that even happened. Carey pulls it off effortlessly, while Meghan's look doesn't quite hit the same way. What's even more noticeable is how few photos actually feature Harry and Meghan compared to everyone else. Some were there, but then disappeared.
And Katy Perry were there alongside Katie's ex Orlando Bloom. Of course it is gross. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's not gross. The fact that Ted Sarandos can be allowing his staff members to absolutely trash his wife's so-called friend to Variety magazine one week and then welcoming them into his bosom for publicity the next.
It creates this odd feeling that they're not fully part of the inner circle, almost like they're on the outside watching it all unfold. It also makes you question the timeline. Did they arrive late? Nicole was photographed earlier in a different outfit, which suggests the event had multiple phases. Some guests appear in early shots, others later, and certain people seem to be missing entirely from specific moments.
So we will start off. I put in beef because obviously that's the show. And I looked up the trailer for it and I was like, I was thinking this had to do with food. It has really nothing to do with food. But here we are. So we did beef, and this is actually...
It just doesn't line up cleanly. And then, to make things even more unexpected, names like Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau are also connected to this gathering. It turns what should be a simple event into something way more unusual. Add in the disappearing photos, the outfit changes, and the strange dynamics, and the whole situation starts to feel seriously off. These photos are honestly the main story here.
It is gross, and trust me, I know how fake Hollywood is. I know how fake the entertainment industry is. But Meghan Markle and the Sussex Squad think this is a win for her. Think that this in some way disproves everything that has gone on with Netflix. It doesn't.
They're what everyone keeps coming back to. So let's break them down properly, starting again with that first image, because there's a lot going on there. This was one of the last photos that actually stayed up before others started disappearing, which already makes it feel important. Looking at it closely, Meghan's expression feels off.
The latest picture that we got of Harry and Meghan right here. So we got a different one later. So this is the last one of the last ones posted. So I have like so many questions as to why.
Very stiff, almost empty, and Harry isn't much different. Meanwhile, Ted and Nicole look relaxed and natural. They actually belong in the moment. In contrast, Harry and Meghan come across a bit disconnected. They're physically there, but not fully present. Now let's talk about the outfit, because it definitely stands out. That dress is very form-fitting, and with that kind of fabric, it's going to show every little detail. There's no hiding anything in a material like that. It's a risky choice, and if the styling underneath isn't spot on, it can throw off the entire look.
All she looks is nuts. Totally crazy. Clinging on to Ted Sarandos' wife for dear life. Indeed, all she actually does is back up my reporting that Meghan had always used this relationship with the wife. Remember, they went to the Beyonce concert all those months ago, and the fact that they were in a mixed race relationship as a way to try and keep her Netflix deal. And look, maybe it did keep the first look deal, but it certainly hasn't saved the business. It certainly hasn't.
In this case, it just doesn't come together in a flattering way. But even beyond the outfit, the body language is what really grabs attention. Ted and Nicole are leaning naturally toward each other, which looks comfortable and genuine. Meghan, though, is leaning toward Nicole in a way that almost creates distance between her and Harry.
Pictures appeared and then seemed to disappear. Who is requesting the takedown? That I think is a big question, which we'll get to at the end. But you'll notice the weird thing. I'm not sure who Meghan is like targeting in this dynamic, but she seems to have a very weird interest in clinging to people. Like it looks like they're holding each other's hands hard.
And then there's the hand holding. She's gripping Nicole's hand in a way that feels unusually intense for this kind of setting. That kind of interaction stands out, and not in a subtle way. If everyone had their arms around each other, it would read as friendly and normal. But it feels different, more forced, more deliberate, and honestly a bit awkward when you really look at it. And that's just one image.
Made Netflix decide to keep wasting tens of millions on spread, which is currently like piling up in a warehouse somewhere just around the corner. I love the reaction to this over the weekend, by the way. The Royal Grift posting, the fakeness in Hollywood makes me want to puke. The same color of this dress. I guess Megs is off.
When you go through the rest, the same patterns start showing up again and again. Meghan is often leaning in very closely, sometimes a bit too much, and there's this repeated sense of clinging onto people in a way that feels overly intentional. It doesn't come across as relaxed or natural. It feels like she's trying to lock into the moment. Again, this isn't about criticizing appearance. It's about presentation and choices.
It's very, very weird. Obviously, the dress is like puke green. She's got a belly that you can see, like so many different things. This dress is truly awful. But again, let's get back to the other facet of this, which again is appearing, disappearing pictures. So we also have this picture right here where you can see Meghan and you can see Harry's bald head in the background. It looks like, I think this happened at Ted Sarandos's home.
Fashion works best when it complements you. And when something doesn't fit quite right or isn't styled well, it becomes distracting. The focus shifts away from the event and onto the outfit itself, which clearly isn't the goal. Then there's that expression, the tight smile that feels like it's doing a lot of work. It gives off this strong, everything is great energy, but in a way that almost feels overdone, like it's trying to convince people rather than just showing it naturally.
The Ozempic. I mean, look, you know I'm never one who really knows much about fashion or anything like that, but good Lord, what was she thinking? I mean, I would just say new stylist is required. And as I say, this comes from someone who knows nothing about fashion.
It actually brings to mind another moment when that same kind of expression showed up during a very public outing after they left Frogmore Cottage. That situation already had a lot of attention around it, and the appearance felt very deliberate, almost staged to send a message.
This did happen in Montecito, so you can see Ted there with his wife, Nicole. And what's weird as well about her is that she did change her outfit. So she went from black to black and white. But what you'll notice in these pictures is that everybody is dressed quite dark. The only color is Carrie Mulligan right here. And so she pops up in somehow the same green as Meghan Markle. Like,
this current event has a similar vibe. It's less about being there and more about being seen there. And then there's the photo with Ted alone. And wow, that one really stands out, but not in a good way. The posture looks awkward, slightly hunched, and the overall energy just feels off.
Nancy Sidley, why is her body twisted like that? I'm shocked Meghan would approve these terrible pics of her. Well, it doesn't look like she did. And Brittany from the Royal News Network has some insight on that in just one moment. Nancy also pointed out this hilarious picture. I found Harry. Look, there he is. There he is. The spare yet again. Meghan's mole.
It has this strange, almost staged look to it, like a posed moment that didn't quite land the way it was supposed to. Ted's expression looks normal and relaxed, but Meghan's smile feels much more forced in comparison. Not necessarily fake, but definitely trying very hard to project a certain image. There's this strong sense of wanting to show status, connection, and importance all at once. It comes across like she's really pushing the idea, look who I'm with.
what are the odds of that? I'm not sure. Carrie obviously looks fantastic. Meghan Markle does not. So you have all these pictures of this event, but none really of Harry and Meghan, or at least some of the pictures of Harry and Meghan have been mysteriously deleted. Maybe we can see them behind here. Nope, doesn't look like it.
Look where I am. And when that effort becomes too obvious, it starts to work against the image instead of helping it. Because the message being pushed here is clear. There's an attempt to show a strong connection to major industry players, especially Netflix. But when you look at everything, the limited photos, the ones disappearing, the awkward interactions, it starts to feel less convincing.
Posted to Nicole Avant, that's Ted Sarandos's wife, change her outfit after Meghan Markle dry humped her and left residue on her clothes. Why doesn't Meghan Markle wear closed-toe shoes when she clearly needs them? Because there was some suggestion that the invite came so late that Meghan hadn't even had time to get her, what is it when it's your feet? Pedicure.
And that's the bigger question hanging over all of this. If everything was solid and secure, would there be this much effort to prove it? The images don't fully support the story being presented, and that disconnect is what people are really picking up on. The Netflix situation, it's really not looking strong right now, and that's becoming harder to ignore.
So it weirdly feels like throughout all of this, Harry and Meghan are really truly on the outside looking in to the Hollywood bubble. The Hollywood bubble is there and Harry and Meghan are not. So I can't help but wonder as well, did they arrive later in the evening? Because we did, and again, Nicole did change her outfit. So you can see the outfit she got pictured with Harry and Meghan here. Her initial outfit right here is just black. So again, I have so many questions about what the heck. And Carrie seems to be mysteriously missing from this picture, although she could be, I guess, somewhere else. We also have Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau, by the way.
There have already been clear signs of distance, and it doesn't exactly scream thriving partnership. Reports of dropped projects and shifting connections have been floating around, and it paints a picture that's far from solid. When you look at that photo again, it gives off this awkward, almost staged vibe.
So much weirdness in this little get-together and gathering. And of course, the mysterious disappearing pictures are kind of the I would argue, somewhat the big story here. And so let's go ahead and examine them. But first, we'll get back to examining this initial picture here. So again, we'll go over like all the pictures. But first, I want to talk about this one. Again, this one was the last one that they appeared in. And Meghan looks dead-eyed.
Ted looks completely at ease, like he's just enjoying the moment. Meghan, on the other hand, feels out of sync. Her expression doesn't quite match the room. And that outfit choice, it definitely isn't helping pull things together. The dress itself just doesn't land well. The structure, the fit, it all feels off. There are so many better options out there that could have elevated the look instead of dragging it down. Styling matters, especially at events like this, and when it misses, it really shows. What stands out even more is the way Meghan interacts physically with people throughout these photos. There's a noticeable pattern, touching, holding hands, leaning in closely, and it comes across like it's trying to signal closeness in a very visible way.
Odd. So does Harry, to be honest. They look cute. They look darling. Ted and Nicole, they look cute. Harry and Meghan look very much both dead behind the eyes. You can obviously see that this dress could be quite revealing.
Almost like, look, we're connected. But that kind of thing only works if it feels natural. And here, it doesn't quite land that way, because real connection usually doesn't need to be emphasized so heavily. When it's genuine, it shows in subtle ways: body language, eye contact, relaxed posture. But when it feels overdone, it can start to look more performative than authentic.
And of course, that's by design. I don't think Meghan Markle is wearing the correct supportive undergarments, which I think matter here, because in that type of dress, guys, if you ever wear that dress, a dress like that with that kind of fabric, it will show every lump and bump. Even if you are the skinniest of skinny queens, if you have any lumps and bumps, any cellulite.
There are also moments where that level of closeness might not match the setting or the other person's energy. Social awareness plays a big role in how interactions are perceived, especially in high-profile environments like this. If one person is much more physically expressive than everyone else, it can stand out quickly. Looking across the group, others seem more reserved in how they interact. No over-the-top gestures, no excessive closeness. That contrast makes Meghan's approach feel even more noticeable, and not necessarily in a positive way. And then there's the bigger pattern behind it all. That repeated intense smiling, the kind that looks like it's working overtime, combined with the constant need to appear connected and included. It starts to give off a very specific energy, one that feels less relaxed and more pressured. Another interesting detail, several of these photos, especially the more awkward ones, were removed from Getty Images after briefly appearing. That includes multiple shots featuring Harry and Meghan, along with at least one image with Harry and other well-known figures. They were there, and then suddenly gone. Even when searching different terms, names, titles, variations, those images just don't show up anymore. That's unusual, especially since photos from similar events or appearances typically remain accessible without any issue. The sudden disappearance definitely raises questions. Why remove them? That's the part that doesn't quite add up. If the event was a success and everything went smoothly, you'd expect the photos to stay up as part of the public record. Taking them down only draws more attention and curiosity to what people already noticed. One particular photo stands out the most, and it's easy to see why. Meghan is smiling widely, almost laughing, while Ted appears genuinely amused. But when you really look at it, her expression feels pushed, like it's going a bit too far. Not relaxed, not effortless, but almost strained. That kind of expression doesn't necessarily communicate confidence. Instead, it can come across as trying very hard to project success, happiness, and belonging all at once. It's like sending a message. Everything is great. Everything is perfect, but saying it so loudly that people start to question it. Because here's the reality. If things were truly solid behind the scenes, there wouldn't be such a strong need to prove it in every single frame. The effort itself becomes the story and not in the way it's intended. And in an industry like Hollywood, where relationships are often strategic and constantly shifting, appearances can only carry so much weight. Genuine connections tend to show themselves without needing to be emphasized over and over again, which brings it back to the core question. When you see this level of intensity, the expressions, the body language, the disappearing images, it makes you wonder what's really driving it. Why push so hard to present everything as perfect? Because when the presentation feels this forced, it usually means there's more going on beneath the surface. At this point, it really feels like she knows the situation isn't going the way she hoped, and that's where a lot of this energy is coming from. The Hollywood experiment hasn't exactly delivered the kind of results that were expected. Sure, there are still projects here and there, but the level of control and influence, that seems to have shifted in a big way. There was also that recent story claiming Meghan is suddenly in huge demand again. Everyone is calling, everyone wants her back, everyone's lining up for a piece of her return to acting. But let's be real for a second. That narrative doesn't quite match what we're actually seeing play out. Because in entertainment, demand usually shows up in clear, visible ways. Major announcements, consistent projects, strong audience reactions. And right now, that momentum just doesn't seem to be there in the way it's being described. Another angle people are questioning? Those disappearing photos. Because it's not the first time something like this has happened. Showing up, posing for pictures, and then having them pulled later, that pattern is starting to get noticed. And here's the thing. Once images are out, they're out. Media outlets already have them. They've already been shared, so removing them after the fact doesn't really erase anything. If anything, it just makes people more curious about why. A big part of this seems tied to image control. The need to present a very specific story, success, strong connections, everything working perfectly. But when that message has to be reinforced this heavily, it can start to feel less convincing. Real connections don't usually need that much emphasis. They show up in natural ways, easy conversations, relaxed interactions, mutual energy. It's not about constant physical cues or staged-looking moments. It's about what feels genuine. And that's where the disconnect starts to stand out. The effort to show closeness, to show influence, to show everything is thriving. It becomes the focus instead of the actual relationships themselves. There are also broader questions about how things are going behind the scenes. Financially, professionally, are the returns matching the expectations that were set early on? Big deals were announced, big numbers were reported, but sustaining that kind of momentum is a completely different challenge. Some of those deals came with high expectations, especially with major platforms involved. But when follow-through, projects don't hit the same way or take longer than expected, it naturally shifts how those partnerships evolve. There have also been reports about business ventures and product claims that didn't fully line up with actual results. In an industry that runs heavily on data and performance, that kind of mismatch doesn't go unnoticed. Even if people remain polite and supportive on the surface, and that's very common in Hollywood, it doesn't always translate into continued investment or deeper collaboration. At the end of the day, decisions tend to come down to results. That's why the current situation feels like a turning point. It's less about what's being said publicly and more about what's actually happening behind the scenes. Are new opportunities growing or quietly shrinking? And when you combine that with the public appearances, the expressions, the body language, the intensity, it starts to paint a picture of someone trying very hard to hold on to a certain narrative. That wide, constant smile. It doesn't necessarily read as relaxed or confident. It can come across like it's working overtime to send a message, everything is great. But when that message feels too strong, people naturally start to question it, because confidence usually doesn't need to be pushed that hard. It shows up in ease, in comfort, in not needing to prove anything in every single moment. And that's really what this all circles back to. The more pressure there is to show success, the more noticeable the effort becomes. And when the effort becomes the main thing people see, it can overshadow everything else. At the end of the day, Hollywood is an environment where results matter, perception matters, and consistency matters even more. Opportunities can open quickly, but they can also close just as fast if things don't land the way they're expected to. Right now, the biggest question isn't what's being said, it's what's actually happening beneath all of it. Because when the presentation feels this intense, this controlled, this carefully pushed, it usually means there's a lot more going on behind the curtain than what's being shown.